During the first quarter of 2020, Guyana will begin extracting oil for commercial use. This will be the culmination of millions of dollars spent, several hours of planning, education and consultation, and an unimaginable number of work hours. This is the fourth and final segment of our series on oil and gas. Today, we're addressing some of the misconceptions and common misbeliefs about the oil and gas sector. This is Government in Action. The first misconception involves the safety risks of tapping into Guyana's offshore oil supply. Many Guyanese believe that removing oil from below the ground will wreak havoc on the ocean floor and marine life and even cause earthquakes. Director of the Department of Energy, Dr. Bynoe, addresses this misconception.
It's a common perception that persons have because persons are of the view that there is this, when you hear of a well, you get the impression that this oil is just sitting there and you're drawing it out. But my understanding is what we're having here is equivalent to like a sponge. And so a sponge, when it's wet, will ultimately be filled with water. It's heavy. As you draw that water out, that sponge still exists, but it's a lighter density now. And so that's the kind of analogy we want to draw between the extraction of oil and earthquakes. And most earthquakes are caused by what we call the shifting of plates. I don't want to become too technical, but it's when the earth is said to be sitting on a number of plates. When those plates move, that's what causes earth tremors. When one plate goes above another, it causes what we call folding. So ultimately, it is not the extraction of fuel, it is the movement of the plates that will cause earthquakes.
According to the University of Michigan, the most common earthquakes are caused when pieces of rock break from the built-up pressure of two plates rubbing against each other. That sudden burst of energy produces seismic waves that make the ground shake. The university also says that it is possible for human intervention, like underground explosions from mines or subways, to release seismic waves. However, waves strong enough to mimic large earthquakes are only possible with the detonation of nuclear weapons. Petroleum geologist Ms. Marissa Foster at the Department of Energy was able to take a look at the Liza Destiny's very own processing unit. She gave us a brief synopsis of the process.
I'm standing on the bridge of the Liza Destiny FPSO, and behind me, this is the processing unit that takes the oil after it comes to the surface. It passes through a separator that separates oil from water from gas, and then the gas is compressed and it can be injected back into the reservoir. The water is also purified and released into the ocean. The oil, after it is processed, is sent into the tanks below the deck, where it awaits the arrival of the tanker for shipping off of the FPSO.
The second misconception concerns the misinformation surrounding local content, which in this context refers to the development of a local workforce that is educated and equipped to confidently function within the oil and gas sector. The companies extracting Guyana's oil are foreign exploration companies, but that does not mean that they are in control of the sector. Rather than wait for Guyanese to acquire the necessary expertise, the government of Guyana has opted to take advantage of the help given by other countries, companies, and international bodies to build the capacity of Guyanese while the sector emerges.
What government has decided to do is to bring in, as I said earlier, the expertise where it exists. So we've been receiving assistance through the Inter-American Development Bank, the World Bank, the IMF, the government of Mexico, the government of Canada, the government of the United States, the government of the UK. I'm sure I'm missing a couple, the Commonwealth Secretariat, to assist us to build out the structures that we need. But as we said earlier, to have Guyanese working alongside these experts so that some process of mentorship will occur. We are encouraging Guyanese, as far as is practicably possible, to establish partnerships, seek for joint ventures. And this is not something you will hear about, and I don't know many would have done it. But when you go out, there are multiplicity of private companies in this country that have already established joint ventureship. Okay, I am not at liberty to name names, but I sit at this desk and I can say to you, quite a few are already benefiting But as is obviously the pattern, we are not going to broadcast it because we don't want our competitors to know what we're enjoying.
Guyanese can rest assured that while the oil exploration companies are foreign, the Liza Destiny belongs to Guyana.
These are costs which we as Guyanese have to pay. So I know we have been seeding a lot and saying, oh, Exxon's vessel and ExxonMobil first FPSO. But as Guyanese, we should start recognizing that these are our monies. And so it is a Guyanese vessel pumping Guyanese fuel, which will be bringing in Guyanese revenue to help Guyanese to ultimately advance and develop.
To some, the emergence of oil and gas greatly conflicts with Guyana's Green State Development Strategy, the GSDS. This forms the foundation for the next misconception, the belief that Guyana cannot pursue success in the petroleum sector while pursuing a green agenda. For the government of Guyana, the answer is simple. The revenues afforded through this oil and gas sector will be used for infrastructural development, education, and to boost Guyana's traditional sectors like agriculture. Most importantly, the revenues will be used to fund Guyana's sustainable development.
Persons have asked, if you have natural gas, is that not going against your green ethos? And my simple answer to that is not necessarily. And let me explain why. Currently, most of Guyana's fuel is what we call HFOs, heavy fuel oils, or diesel. If we are to use gas, it will reduce the emissions from HFOs by 50%. So while gas is not necessarily green, it will reduce our own emission, and Guyana is already a net emitter. What that means is that we have more forested resource than the pollutants that we're putting out. So we're a net sink. If we were to reduce that by 50%, we become an even larger net sink. The other big question is, what provides a greater burden on the environment? Is it poverty or riches? Okay? So are we to have these resources and leave our people in a poverty-stricken state? Development is not just about a green environment. In fact, if we look at the Green State Development Strategy, it's not just about leaving things as they are. It's a development strategy which focuses on social development and also economic development. Here, Guyana has an opportunity to use these resources to pursue what we call sustainable development. So in actual fact, use the resources to put in more sustainable entities, because oil and gas will not last. This provides us an opportunity to do that.
Guyanese, do not be distracted by the rumors. First Oil 2020 is coming, and the government of Guyana, the Department of Energy, and several other state departments throughout the public service are readying themselves to exploit the resources in this sector for the benefit of all Guyanese. That's it for Government in Action. I'm Grace Williams. Have a good week.